Hey everybody, so Watachi from the Watachi Still Running Free channel. I gotta get used to this, folks. Up until a few days ago, it was just Watachi Running Free, and everybody knew who I was that needed to know. Well, people, they think they're gonna shut me up by simply taking down a channel I started building over 6 years ago. Taking down all my videos, shutting down all of it. This isn't the first time they've done this to me, folks. They done it for about 7, 8 years. I was on Facebook. I had several Facebook channels under fake names and stuff. Because of where I worked for the government. I was working for the post office, running mail from the airports, distribution centers, to distribution centers, or from distribution centers to local post offices. I was a contractor with them. I wasn't an employee of the government. I was a contractor for the government. So they had to pay me what they call prevailing wages. And so I made the same money even though I didn't work directly for the post office. But anyway, folks, this video, I want to give you a rundown on my life so you know why I do what I do and why I push it to the point that I push it. Now, I was born, my father was born in 1930. If that don't say anything to you folks, then you don't know nothing about his history. Because 1929 was when the Great Depression started. 1930, my dad was born. For almost the entire Great Depression was the childhood of my father. Him and his two brothers ended up popping from foster home to foster home. My father's last name, he was the oldest of the three boys. My father's last name was Grooms, which is mine. His two brothers carried the last name of Robertson for whatever reason. My brother, there was my dad, Ernest, and Tommy were the three boys. My dad was Bill William. My dad was the oldest, Ernest was in the middle, and Tommy was the youngest. Well, Ernest died, I must have been about like maybe somewhere between 5 and 7 years old, somewhere around that. I didn't know much about him. Him and his wife owned a fabric store down in Alabama. I remember him, and I could tell you, if I walked up on him, I would recognize him. So I was old enough to have that memory. I remember the house they lived in. I remember the store him and my aunt owned. My Aunt Frances. They owned a fabric store, and this was back when people used to make their own clothes. It was a pretty big store. But anyway, these three basically lived through the Great Depression. Uh, we didn't know much about any of their parents. Any of their parents. Because of the two different last names, is why I say that. The same mother, but different fathers between the three boys. We, I never met any of my grandparents, not from my mother's side or my father's side. Never seen any generation past my mom and dad in my family. But and my mother now, my dad. I just told you about my dad. My mother was born in Ohio. Her mother died. My grandmother died on my mother's side. Died. I think my mom was like 5 or 6. So her and her father, that was in Ohio, I think it was like Zanesville or something like that. They they moved out to Arizona, where they heard it could help my mother's father's breathing problems. He had real bad asthma and emphysema and stuff. So they moved out there, and my mother and him moved out there when my mother was young, like 7, 8, somewhere around that. They lived in a little trailer, a camper you'd pull behind your car for years. And her father ended up dying out there, and was buried out there. Well, my mother, because if she was so young, she went and lived with her. And don't make fun of me, people, but I had an Aunt B, and if that ain't funny to you, and that shows how young you guys are, and it shows how old I am. But Aunt B is a character on Andy Griffith's show. But I really did have an Aunt B, and she finished raising my mother. Remember her well. I got to meet her several times before she died. But she was an old woman when she took on finished raising my mother. Now, these two got together after my dad went into the Korean War, volunteered. The only reason he volunteered was because he didn't want his two brothers being drafted. So he made a deal with the Army when he volunteered. He said he would volunteer to go fight on the front lines of the Korean War, as long as they never made his two brothers, Ernest and Tommy, go fight overseas. Now he didn't care if they drafted them into the Army, but to keep them out of the war, keep them stateside out of the war. Now the Army made this deal with my dad, and they put him right smack dab in the middle of the Chosin Reservoir battles. And if you people don't know what that was the worst battles in the Korean War. It was at the coldest times, in the worst conditions. And they put my dad right in the middle of it because he volunteered. Frontline shit. He was a mortar crew. And the mortar equipment they used, they had to carry it around in a truck. That's how heavy it was. It took 3 or 4 guys to carry the base of the mortar and set it up. Well, while he was in, when he got out, he was given 3 bronze stars and a silver star. Silver. Why do I have such a hard time saying that word? Silver star. We never knew it, folks. He never talked about it. He never asked the military for anything other than the first house we bought, or that he bought, my mom bought. They bought on the GI loan after he got out of the military. And after me and my sister and my brother were already born, so this was several years after he got out. And he had a family going, so he finally went back. He didn't ask the government for nothing. He lived through the shit he went through in the Korean War. He didn't ask the government for nothing, except for that GI loan that they promised him for a house if he ever wanted it. And they gave it to him. And that was the first house we lived in. Now, after we moved into this house, I started going through a training I didn't even know about. I started off at about 7 years old, being trained by a man it gave me no warnings, gave me no clues that that's the training I would be going through. But because of what he went through in the war, caused him to drink massively to try to wash out those war memories. And I was the oldest son, oldest boy. And I took the blunt of his anger, hate, all the stuff they put in him when they sent him over there to fight in a war that we had no reason to even be in. But he volunteered for it, folks. He was not drafted. He did it to himself. And he was mean. He taught me how to block a full-grown man from kicking you with union-rated shoes on, because he was a union painter for a major oil company, Standard Oil. So he had to wear a certain kind of shoes or boots. And he wore them most of the time. He taught me he started training me at about 7 years old on how to block those kind of kicks with a shoe on that can mess you up. He didn't tell me I was going to go through that training, but he put me through it anyway. And I learned how to do it, folks, on my own. You know, once there's 11,000 kicks thrown at you, you don't need somebody to tell you how to block them. You learn. Now, this also went from backhands, doubled up fists, open hand smacks, grabbed my guitar one time, hit me with that, a lamp, whatever he can get his hand on. And he trained me. He trained me well on how to learn how to block those kind of things. Now, he hit me many a times, folks. Make no mistakes. I didn't learn fast, but he taught me over many years how a smaller person, because I was always small people. I'm only 5'7". I was always the smallest person in the class, shortest. Hell, even when we used to go to Kings Island because I grew up in Greenwood, Indiana, Indianapolis. They'd take me. We'd go to Kings Island and all these different parks around the country. I was never big enough to even drive the bumper cars or anything. You remember you had to be so tall to ride this ride. Well, I was never that tall. It used to piss me off. So I was a small person. And my dad trained me on how to fight a full size man at a young age. Now, it got to the point I had to have my wisdom teeth cut out. My mom took me to the orthodontist. They cut them out. If any of you's had them cut out, you know what they do. They put you under, take them out. You go home, get some pain medication. Well, that's what happened. I went in, they put me under. Hell, when I was waking up, I was going, man, I ain't been out long enough. You guys ain't done nothing. I got home. I was still under the drugs. My mom she laid me out on the couch with my shoes on. She left to go get the pain medication I was going to need when I woke up. My dad walked in while she was gone. He was drunk. Saw me with my shoes on the couch asleep. Ripped his belt off of his waist. Started smacking me and people that was still out. He got about 4 smacks in before I come to. I jumped up. And by this time, I was done. I jumped up. He swung that belt at me again. I caught it with my hand. I ripped it out of his fucking hands. I rolled it up and I told him, I'll give it back to you when you learn how to use it right. And I went and hid it. A couple days went by. My mom's going, Brian, give the damn belt back to your dad. I said, Mom, I'll give it back to him, but if he hits me with it again, he'll never get it back. So I gave it to him. It wasn't long after that, when my dad came home, my mom made me leave the house. Now, sometimes he'd come home 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I was probably a teenager at this time, somewhere between 11 and 13. He would come home. We'd see him pull up in his work truck. He had a van with ladders on top and shit. He was an industrial painter in the union. My mom would yell at me, Brian, get out of here now. Get your dad's home. Get out of here. I'd have to run out the back door. My mom's telling me to leave. Because if my dad came in, he was pissed if I was there. And there would be a fight. So I wasn't allowed to be there if he was there. So that went on, and I would be looking in the window trying to figure out my dad's asleep. Everybody, all the kids in the neighborhood are all in their houses with their families. It's after dark. I'm somewhere between 11 and 14 years old, nowhere to go. And I'm looking in the window to see if my dad's still up or if he's passed out or went to bed. Then I'd be allowed in the house. We're already 19 minutes into this, huh? I'm only to there. Anyway, we'll jump up a little bit. In high school, basically the principal brought my parents in, told them this boy He has no respect for authority, and he needs to have a job. He don't need to be in school. That's what they told my parents. My mom looked at him and said, "We don't care what you think. He's staying in school until he graduates high school." So, guess what the high school did, folks? Straight D's and F's. I was graduated. Just to get rid of me. That was fine with me. I didn't believe their shit anyway. And I fought all the cops. I fought them all. Did a lot of bad things when I was young. Things that I'm ashamed of, to be honest with you. But a lot of things changed on me last year. My faith in God got even stronger than it ever had been. And I don't have time to go through all the things that I've been through. I've been through 3 heart surgeries, 3 different doctors that claim to be the best, and the bestest. Couldn't fix my heart. At 30 to 40% lung capacity, when you know what happened last year. Now, these people wanted to put a mask on my face. On top of it, I was about 60 to 70 pounds heavier than I am now. And my faith wasn't real strong. These medical doctors been claiming all my life they were helping me. Had me on pills, heart pills, because of the operations I've been through. And they couldn't fix it. They had me on these medications, blood pressure medications and shit, up until last year. For 20 years, I've been on those medications. They told me, if you don't take these, you're going to die. Last year, when all this happened, and they wanted to put a cover over my nose and mouth, and I fought them tooth and nail. My own heart doctors told me, you're going to wear a mask, or we're going to take you off of all your medication to let you die. That's what they told me. I told them to kiss my ass. I was done with them. That was over 8 months ago, folks. They told me I'd be dead if I stopped taking their medications. As a matter of fact, I've dropped almost 70 pounds. I feel better today than I've felt in 20 years since I've been taking their dope. And I'm still Watati. And I'm still running free. Now, Boardman Township decided to become a thorn in my side. I got a channel for them. Boardman Township, Ohio. Look it up. That's going to be my entire story of this town. Got another channel. Fukawe Four Wheelers. Fukawe space number 4 space Wheelers. We talk about a lot of stuff on there. Now, these guys took down my Watachi Running Free channel. This is my step 2 to Watachi still running free. We need to get the word out. We need to get subs up so I can at least get 1,000 subs so I can go live, folks. I like doing the live because you all can get involved. Now, I'm telling you things about me just to get you to understand where I'm coming from. Don't matter what you know about me, because all I want to do is show you the truth. And I want to show you why I want the truth, why I believe in the truth, and why Jesus Christ is knowledge. God loves us all, folks. And I love you too. This is why I tell you what's going on. Make no mistake. The only way out is through Jesus Christ. And if you don't have Jesus in your heart, the Word of God in your mind, and the Holy Spirit in your soul, you're not going to like what's coming. If I make any sense to you, folks, like, share, and subscribe. Get my channel out so I can go live. And if you don't care for what I have to say, move on. Doesn't matter to me. Not anymore. You guys have a good day out there. Love you. Till the next one.